Lora, welcome to the Scenic Route podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here.
So, for anyone listening in, I want to get this out of the way first. Lora is an ethical, sustainable fashion designer. Her company is certified B Corp, right? And she's also a good friend with Aja Barber, who I had on a podcast a few episodes back. So I don't want you go now, turn off this episode and go listen to Aja's. But I want to do, if you have not yet, go do that just right after, because I feel this is very much a continuation of the chat I had with Aja about sustainability and ethical fashion, colonialism, and ultimately we deserve better things. Um, Before I questioned you, Laura, about how can we actually find better things and how do we know quality if it hits us in the head? I'm really curious to hear from you how like fast fashion is seemingly everywhere, right? I had also friends, designer friends who got ripped off and their designs stolen. Like it's a huge mess. So, how do you personally cope with the emotional labor of creating clothing in a world that often devalues like craftsmanship and handmade work?
That's a very good question. I probably would like to start with how people can try and learn a little bit more and recognize what good quality clothing means. And
Mm,
I think that's a very difficult thing as well, because like you said, it's all, the fast fashion has taken over 90% of what we have on the market is maybe not 90, but pretty much is fast fashion. So a lot of people, especially young people, I would say pretty much anyone Gen Z, they would not even know what to look for,
mm-hmm,
if that makes sense. So I feel like one of the things that we should say here before dwelling first in the subject is probably try and learn a little bit more about quality,
mm,
what a quality garment looks like. And that can happen in many ways. I mean, obviously the internet is there, but a lot of smaller ethical brands and a lot of creators in that space are doing quite a lot of content around this, showing stitches or, fits or finishings, variety of things which can help you assess or at least see some signs of what a good quality garment means. I believe there is this the conversation is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and people are more interested, people from all sorts of life and ages and demographics. And I really want to say here as well, just go and learn a little bit more, because this is pretty
mm,
much where we fail as a first step. We as a society, we as everyone you can think of that buys clothes, which is basically everyone because we need clothes, right?
mm-hmm,
And I mean, it's just big companies, larger corporations, they kind of count on this, that you don't know, you can't really make the difference. So it doesn't really matter. I was walking by the other day through central London, and I passed by a fast fashion store, large fast fashion store. And even on the window, there was a couple of, styled sets on the window,
mm-hmm,
and you can tell that it's such a bad quality. You can see some of it already sort of like falling and dripping here and there. And it's
mm-hmm,
just, obviously I'm not the person who, obviously I'm in this. I have been making clothes for 15 years, so it's very difficult for me to, to not sound condescending or somehow, just like give it as a simple answer, because when you're too much into this, too professional,
mm-hmm.
it becomes a reflex, right? It's you just see something and
Oh
you
God, I'm a condescending bitch whenever, like, I'm a trained graphic designer back in the
right?
days, like 20 odd years ago. So whenever I see like a magazine or a newspaper or like a bad like typo lettering, I'm like, "Ah!"
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
exactly. You're kind
Oh, it's
of like,
okay. We can be condescending
uh,
bitches. It's fine.
this is a little bit there, but I just feel like there is ways that people can learn how to
Mm,
recognize good quality clothing. It's there. Yes, it does need a little bit of digging. It does need a bit of time, but it's there. Like we have it. There is plenty of people doing that. So I think
yeah.
that's probably the first one I really want to say. Just go learn a little bit more because it will save you money. It will save you time. It will save you frustration, and I know
Mm,
this is like not the major thing of everyone's life, but at the same time, it's like anything else. It's like the better food that you put in your body, better clothing that you put on your body is the closest things to us at
mm-hmm.
all times, right?
Yeah.
So, going back to your question, how do I cope with that? You know what? Like everything else, there are days and days. There are some days where, a customer would get back and say something really nice, or, you have a PR win out of nowhere, and you just feel like there is a there is a point, I mean, I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
the right thing and,
You're getting a
I'm for
breadcrumb after
it. Yeah,
breadcrumb, and you're
exactly.
like,
And there are days, of course, where sometimes I look at the statistics and you see, all these fast fashion companies growing crazy. And then you see on the other side, so many smaller ethical businesses, local businesses failing simply because you know they can't really make a sustainable business or sustainable living out of it, and you're just really struggling mentally to find the purpose of all of this. But I tend to I tend to try and stay in my own lane
mm-hmm.
mentally, business wise, physically. I really try to limit the noise that I see
Mm-hmm.
all the time because if you start, I saw even yesterday, I saw a post and it was like, oh, you want to start a fashion brand? Probably it's not the best time because of XYZ. And I actually find those posts extremely unhelpful because there is never a right time or a wrong time. If you look at it from, a zoomed out perspective, there is always something happening in the world.
Oh
And
God, yes.
you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then the other day I was talking to a friend and he told me something really beautiful that really fits my way of looking at things. And it was something around the lines of it's all going at the same time, from the most beautiful to the absolute worst. And where you choose to put your focus is your life and your work. And obviously, there are people who are more suited to show you the worst of us, the worst of the world and society and everything. And there is people who are more suited to show you the beauty. I've always done aesthetics and I've always struggled because obviously, you are a person, you see the news, you
Mm-hmm.
see what's happening in the world. So you're not, isolated from all of it. But I've always done this and I've always wanted to bring more beauty to the world. So I kind of try and always go back to that. What is my,
I love this.
what I mean? Like
Yes, yes.
what's my
100%.
thread? Where is my thread from the whole cloth? Where is my the one thing that I can do? Because when you're like 15, 20, I guess you have this very romantic perspective about the world and you're like, oh, I'm gonna fix things, and then you grow up and you realize that you can fix a small corner of it.
Yeah, you're fixing this dumpster fire while this one is burning
Exactly.
even brighter.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean you're not part of the whole picture,
Yeah,
right?
and it does not like diminish like the work you did. You like you put out a dumpster fire. Like good for
Exactly.
you.
Exactly. And this is where I also feel a lot of people fail, going back to, if you choose a good quality, because a lot of people, regardless who they are, would be like, yeah, but it's just one small thing. And then if you, again, zoom out and look at this at the whole perspective of how the world functions,
Yeah.
everything matters at all times.
Yeah.
So if you choose this one thing to do this one small thing right, whatever it could be, buying a better garment from a better business, buying better food for yourself,
Hmm.
exercising, spending
Yeah.
5 minutes with yourself to channel your personal, inner energy. All of that matters all the time. And I just feel like it's a really important perspective that we have to go back to.
Yes, 100%. I feel we get and that we get tricked into believing our individual actions don't matter.
Don't matter. Yeah.
And which is so not true, right? Like we know boycotting works. Um like I mean just Starbucks is coming to mind, right? Like a lot of people saying, "Nah, you know what? Your coffee is shit. Like we're
Yeah.
not supporting your actions against Gaza, like whatever." Like no. And it's working, right? They're down. Like their stock is down and whatever.
Of
But
course, because where you put your money is where you put your power. You as an individual,
yeah.
you kind of have that in a capitalistic society, I guess. But
Well, we
still,
are in that system. I
we
mean,
are in that
it's
system. Exactly.
we need to like we can talk about dismantling it. I'm always there for that, but I feel this needs like to have at least a gin and tonic with it. Um, but it's so true, right? Like I remember when I started really looking at what I was wearing a couple of years ago. Um, then I remember I got a really nice um piece. I think one of the first ones was from Elizabeth Suzanne, actually.
Okay.
Um, and I got so many compliments for it, right? And I would always say, "Oh, this is this like independent maker in the States who like blah blah blah," and it would like go on a little like TED talk. Um, and that was me influencing people, right? Like there were people who've never heard of this person before, right? And it's small scale and all, but it goes on and on. And don't let anyone ever tell you individual actions don't matter. Like
Yeah.
this is just the biggest lie they want you to believe.
Biggest. Yeah, absolutely. And it's so easy to manipulate into people's heads, It's so easy.
Oh, sure.
I mean, obviously, it's just this one thing and it doesn't matter. And then you multiply it in your head by 3 billion, and it actually matters quite a bit. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
and it's also like it's so frustrating. Like, I'm a sociologist and it's so frustrating. Like I believe very much in systems define how we act how our actions look like, how we can do things. We follow certain systems, right? And and then you're like, yeah, this is the easy way and we can also decide we hold agency. We can also decide to do things differently. And I love that you said at the beginning it has a lot to do with um, raising, with educating ourselves, with raising our awareness for certain things, and just that made me thinking of when I was like little girl in school. We had like textile work as like in school. It was I don't know a couple of hours a week where we had to sew, we had to knit, we did all these things. And they still have that in school, but I'm pretty sure it's not as many hours anymore, right? And all
probably.
these things, like it starts very early on that you can also like teach your kids that you mend clothes, right? Like we
Yeah.
make it a thing for our son that like he sees us mending his clothes,
Yeah.
right? Because things
That's
break
the
shit all
very
the time.
That's the very basics of it, I did have that in my school as well. I think they have it, but it's very minimized now.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel like also next to this, the conversation about it in schools is completely it doesn't exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had someone contacted me a couple months ago, I suppose, and it was basically parents, like organization of parents, trying to put more awareness into that conversation. So they were essentially asking experts and people
Mm-hmm.
from industry to go and talk to students from secondary schools.
Yeah.
So I thought that it's a really good idea. The problem with this is that it's all on volunteers basis, and people which know what they're talking about are usually quite busy. So I would like to see it further developed by potentially, some sort of like a program that governments can adopt and put into schools, not just for clothes, but just like the whole conversation about, because in my kid's school there is a big conversation about sustainability and
Mm-hmm.
how to, when I say sustainability, I mean anything think about anything, preserving nature and stuff, but
Hmm.
somehow rarely clothes are part of this.
Yes, so in our school, like
Yeah,
they talk about food
very, very
sustainability
rare.
and everything,
Yeah,
but not, but at the same time, you're like,
yeah.
well, but can we also talk about like
No, it's very,
companies like
very
Shane
hard.
who
Exactly, exactly. I had to put quite a bit of effort. And mind you, I'm in this business and my kid is, she's 8 years old now, but
minus five. So,
eh,
yeah.
but they understand. And,
Yeah.
she one day and she was like, can I have that thing from Shein?
Hmm.
And I was like, no, you can't. So we had that conversation.
Yeah.
And what actually made her reconsider and not go into a tantrum as an 8-year-old would most of the time, with the fact that they have stole from us a design, and I
Mm,
showed her, and she
mm.
was really pissed. She was like, oh,
That's a good
that's not a
teacher.
good
Yeah.
thing to do.
Hmm.
So I mean, but most parents don't have that tool in their head. So
Yes.
and most parents actually today don't have the agency that schools have,
Hmm.
in my view. I mean, kids are more, I guess they have a little bit more respect to their teachers rather than their parents because we work more, this is
Yeah, and
maybe not.
sometimes I don't know. I mean, I remember back when I was a kid, my dad could tell me something. I would be like, "Oh, dad," and then
Yeah.
like this handsome like subsidiary teacher would tell me something. I'd be like, "Sure, I'm listening." Right? Like it's
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Exactly. So I might be wrong.
Well,
Maybe not
whoever
for
gets the message
everyone.
through to my kid, like I'm
Whoever,
Deadpool. Like I don't
exactly.
care.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Whoever gets the message out there. So I just feel like it could be a really good thing if governments can push something in that direction. Maybe like,
Mm.
like this mentorship programs that we have here in London, in the UK general with the, no, I think it's in London only. The mayor started some mentorship for young people. I think these are really important things, on
Mm.
scale, on
Oh
scale.
yeah. Oh God. Yes. Yes. I just remember I was shopping with my niece for her birthday the other day just last week, and then we were we were actually she was like she saw one of these like very pretty dresses, and I was looking. I always look at clothes tax at the tax because I don't buy polyester. End
Yeah.
of story. Right. And then, of course, this dress was like 85% polyester. And I'm like, look, I'm sorry, we're not buying this.
Yeah.
Right. And she was like, I really want that. And we started a full on conversation. And it was really, and it made me think like, oh, like I've never came across good resources that explain the whole sustainable fashion and or like not sustainable fashion dilemma
So on a
to
simple level,
kids
right? Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I know we have books at home who explain like how your sausage is being made and all these things, right? But I have never come across maybe I don't know if someone listening who knows the perfect kids book for this, like please like send it to me. Like I'm like is there one? Can someone make one, please? Like who explains it for kids age 5 to 10 or something? Anyway, but so
But
that's one thing. Yeah.
I want to add something to this. I think actually a lot of, and please, to anyone who is listening, maybe forgive me for saying that, because I know that everyone in this space talking about things and being really passionate about it has good intentions. But at the same time, I'm one of those people in this space again. And I have been really struggling with all the messaging from sustainable advocates and
Hmm.
sustainability, especially in fashion. Because you see, my first education is advertising and marketing, and my second education is business. And, Ogilvy in the 60s or in the 70s, he said something which it's like a rule, it's how humans perceive information. And basically, it's a quote from him saying, you can't bore your customers into buying your product. You have to excite them, you have to inspire them. Whatever the emotion is, it has to be something
Hmm.
which is positive because this is how we function on a
Yeah.
advertising is basically psychology and subliminal
It
messaging,
is. It
right?
is. It is. It is psychology and
Entirely,
sociology because we
entirely.
need to generate trust. Yes.
Exactly. entirely.
Yes.
So I feel
I worked in branding for 20 years. So yes, I support this message.
there you go. And I feel like a lot of the messaging that we have adopted in the sustainable fashion space, especially, is very much loaded language, negative messaging, guilt.
Oh, this is
Yeah.
such a good point. Yes.
No,
The
it's
shaming
all
is
very,
going really rampant.
all very, very negative. And it's
Mhm.
always like, getting people to feel guilty that they are not doing good enough. And it always comes from, and when I say it always, I mean, en masse. I don't mean always like as a, probably there are some people out there who are not doing it, but the majority of what you get across as a message is basically this, bunch of people sitting on this high pedestal being like very righteous and knowledgeable. And, very often the conversation is loaded with certifications and emissions and this and that and whatever. And I feel like a lot of people listening to those things are just basically like, what are you guys talking about? So I do feel like this is very much what you just said is very much relevant to the whole conversation, regardless if it's kids or adults.
Yeah.
Now, I very much try to stay away from it as much as possible and never really, take it as a first step, because sustainability became this buzzword where no one really knows what it means anymore. And it's like, oh, sustainable fashion, this sustainable clothing, is it really sustainable? Is it? And you're like, oh my dear God, I grew up in a country which is, basically one of the biggest hubs for making garments. And it's just if you go and have this conversation with one of the factories that we work with, and I actually give her as an example very often. It's a factory that's based in high at the mountains. It's like
Hmm.
this high mountain area,
Yeah.
basically. Very clean, very, it's a big factory for 150 people. And I've been witnessing a few conversations where, people will ask her, what about sustainability? And they have all the certificates that they need to have, and like it's very transparent and stuff. And she's usually responding something like, what do you mean sustainability? We live here. 99.99% of the people in this building live here. They grow up here. Their kids are growing here. What do you mean sustainability? Of course, we care about everything. This is
Hmm.
where we live. So I feel like it's becoming this again, like, marketing perspective of things rather than looking at the very human side of it. And why do we need to talk about this? And why do we need
Hmm.
to do those things? And why is it important that we sustain ourselves making garments, making food, making energy, making anything? Because it's the exact same conversation and logic behind it.
Hmm. I I'm glad you bring this up because this will also probably get me some heat. But like, listen, this is something I have also, I feel is kind of like in the lane also of self-care, the whole self-care and like the perversion of it, right?
It's the
Nothing
same.
against true self-care, but the like in an Audre Lorde kind of way. But anyway, right? Like, has sustainability become some sort of like cultural capital, like that? It's kind of like a marker of class distinction as well. And you then have these like, oh, I'm able to engage in sustainability, and so I'm like so good. And you're like,
Well,
is
I
that the
don't
point?
I don't know, but I do feel you have something going on there. And I'm happy for us to take the heat because I think it's an important conversation. I see more and more people, and I don't mean anyone in particular, but it's part of that conversation. I don't even, if you ask me who,
It's
I don't
just a narrative of.
it's just a narrative, but even look at it now. Like pretty much everyone that talks about sustainability has become like this, a platform with self-serving people. I sell this, or I subscribe to this, or and don't get me wrong, I think it's all good. It's all like if you're providing some sort of information, whether it's through a podcast, a mailing list, a product, it doesn't matter. But I feel like a lot of people in this space have completely forgotten, and this is where my personal frustration with the no buy and secondhand September and
Mhm.
all sorts of, you know, weird events going on that kind of like pick up people's brains, and there is no critical thought applied to it whatsoever. It really frustrates me because, instead of a lot of people that are supposedly advocates for sustainable fashion really push better businesses and somehow try to give people an actual solution, they sort of like push their own agenda before everything else. So it makes me very often
Yeah.
wonder, you know, but wait a second, is it about the message or it's about you in relation to the message? Because it very much feels like it, now at this point.
Oh, yes.
It really
Oh,
does.
yes.
It
It's
really, really
really,
does. So I think you have a point. I think you do have a point. And it's not just like a social capital. It's more like another platform where people can bank on something, which again, as much as I understand we live in a capitalistic society and all, but it doesn't really serve anyone but them. This is where I have a problem with it.
oh God, yes. If it's just another symptom of like me neoliberalism, I'm like, no, I'm out. I'm sorry. Like, you cannot solve anything by bypassing social awareness and like,
No?
mm-mm.
Exactly. Exactly.
Ugh.
Point.
This is what's I'm currently like
It's
writing
very
down notes
frustrating.
on self-care and like the whole like bypassing of social awareness that also goes into a lot of the coaching and therapy spaces, right? Like you cannot it's not possible. And I will include sustainability in that thought. Like I have nothing smart to say as of now, but this has to marinate, but it will go into that.
But it's really frustrating. And I think a lot of people really like back off immediately from this because, if someone is basically telling you constantly, if you don't listen to me, or if you don't subscribe to my newsletter, or if you don't buy my product, and, having the finger in front of your face, or just like the whole narrative very often in this space is really like it feels threatening and aggressive and
Hmm.
arrogant. And I just, maybe it's me, maybe I'm always happy to be proven wrong, but I just don't feel people en masse will subscribe to it. They want, because this is again human psychology. We want to be inspired, we want to be aspired to do something,
Yeah.
not to be constantly told how bad we're doing on any sort of
We
front.
most of us know. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I feel this is shifting, or I really want to
I
believe
feel
this
it's
is
this.
shifting.
Yes, I
And
agree. I agree.
I mean,
Yeah,
the past couple of years, we have seen this bro marketing, scarcity tactic, funnel marketing
yeah, yeah.
stuff en masse. And I truly want to believe it's shifting. And I sometimes see little glimmers where I'm like, it's starting, it's turning. So,
It
but it's
is.
too early to tell.
No, I 100% agree with you. I think there is a massive shift, which though now looks tiny, like everything has a bell curve.
Everything
At
starts
the end of the
tiny in a
day,
seed
everything has a bell
somewhere.
curve. We have to, climb the mountain, go on top, and then like plateau. And we are on the way, and nothing in the world is too big and too complex, and there is many things happening again at the same time. So nothing is quick. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I kind of, in all conversations about sustainability, when people start losing hope, I kind of want to remind them about the Berlin Wall, which fell for just a few days. It was there
Hmm.
for such a long time, and then it fell for
Yeah.
a few days.
And
So the
change can happen pretty quickly.
change can happen pretty quickly. It takes time to build that up
Yeah.
in people's minds, but then, boom, and next day we wake up in a different
Yeah.
world. I'd like to believe that and keep it in my
Yeah. Me too.
yeah,
We're always the glasses all half
yeah,
full people. But
always,
yeah, I
always.
sometimes, yeah. And it's always interesting that Disney always gives me like the boomer side eye. But I'm like, it's okay. Like, I will be your eternal snowflake. Like, I can live with that.
Yeah.
But I want to circle back to what I said. It goes back to the quality and how you can spot it. Maybe like I said when I shared like with my niece and the polyester dress, I always check tag like the clothing tags on like what's in it. It's polyester. I'm like, nope, not for me because I just don't like. I just prefer natural fibers on my skin. Um, what is your like? What are your most reliable indicators of garment quality? Right, that anyone buying anything should look for, like beyond brand names.
Yeah.
Can you share a few with us?
Yeah, of course. I usually try to kind of like give very simple answers to this because of everything we just said now. I think people get really confused. So one of the things, the first thing I would probably say is try and avoid fast fashion at all times,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, simply
Mm-hmm.
because their whole model is built on, cutting corners, using the cheapest possible fabrics, and having like
And
a
someone is paying the price.
and
Always, someone is
someone,
always
of
paying the price.
course, of course, but also that includes using very cheap fabrics, because
Mm,
you can't essentially somehow you have to achieve this really low price point that people,
yeah.
think
And
it's
even if you
a
pay
good deal.
people like shit, you still have to pay them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, wow.
So you cut other
Um,
corners. Yes,
so
all the
I would
fabric.
say, obviously, the first one is to avoid, but even like, let's say you can't, and there are people who genuinely need to buy something from them. I just try and go for natural fibers. Really try and avoid the plastics because, there. I'm not one of those people who will say eliminate polyester for good and once and for all, simply because it's there. We have invented it, and there is actually some good sides of it. If you look at it from a professional perspective, there are some good sides of it. And yes, they are mainly connected to a price point, but again, this is the reality we live in. So the issue with polyester is the quantity. It's not the fact that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see, before polyester was invented, just for the sake of example and fact checking with people's
Mm-hmm.
heads, um, polyester was invented to bond fabrics, to have a better longevity and durability. And, it was a fiber, man-made fiber, which was done for that. But if you go a step back, you will see that what was used before polyester is silk, because silk
Mm-hmm.
is the strongest fiber known to humans. And it's the only one from all that we use, which is a long, it's called the filament. So it's a long fiber.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a long continuous fiber, something that doesn't really easily break.
Mm-hmm.
So let's
Makes sense.
say on the other side, you will have, let's say, cotton, which is a short fiber, and it's easily breakable.
Yeah, a
So
lot of points where you can break and
exactly.
fizzle out.
It can break. It's called a
Yeah.
staple fiber, and it's shorter, so it can break more easily. So
Mm.
essentially, back in the day, people have been using silk to bond fibers, but silk is quite pricey and it's very difficult and labor intensive to make.
Mm-hmm.
So when we came up with polyester, this was the solution to have a long staple, long
A long
film,
thread. Yeah.
a long film which can bond fibers. So very often, man-made fibers like polyester, polyamides, and nylons, they're used to bond fibers to make them more durable, especially like more fragile fiber, like cotton, like linens, like,
Wool.
even wool, same
Mm-hmm.
short fiber. So generally speaking, there is no harm in having some polyester. The problem is we have now 80% of our garments are made entirely from polyester, which is
Yeah.
completely bonkers. It does not
Yeah.
make
If
any
you look at the origin
it's,
on whites, yeah.
exactly. It's completely
Yeah.
weird. It shouldn't be that way because, again, clothing, any garment, is the closest thing to your body at all times.
Yeah. Your
And
skin is
you
your
really
sec is
don't
your
want
second
to,
biggest organ. Like it's
you don't want to be wrapped in plastic, you want to have
yeah,
something
that's
breathable and
yeah,
it feels
weird.
nice. And all of that. Exactly. So it's really about the quantities at this point. So
Mm,
rule number one, I would say, is go for natural fibers. Obviously, this will be slightly pricier, but still, it's much more,
mm,
rule number one. Rule number two, I would probably say, have a look at the stitches. So I usually tell people, if you just kind of pull a stitch a little bit and you see it easily, giving room in between the threads,
mm-hmm,
obviously this garment will be, it won't be that durable and the
Yeah,
long.
a couple of
So that's
washes and it's
and that's
probably.
very easy to see, right? That's very easy to see. You just pull
Mhm.
the stitches a little bit and maybe what I would say is like just look at the whole build of a garment, like if
Mm,
something really feels like it's a good it's well made and kind of like finished nicely, even if it's a high street brand, I think you have a much better chance to have it for longer rather than something like I said, I saw the other day on a fast fashion retailer's window, just it looks like it's going to fall off any second,
mhm.
disintegrate on the body. So I just honestly, my biggest advice is don't use that much knowledge because most people don't have that knowledge now. And it's really weird to, critique them that they don't know. I mean, I would probably say just use your common sense like any other product. Use your common
Yeah, but that's also like I
sense.
have to. Everyone who knows me is now. Oh, now she's gonna tell that story again. I had a professor at uni, and he had two sayings, and I quote both on a daily basis. And one is common sense is not so common.
It's true, true, true.
Truer word has never been spoken. Like he had some very weird out there thoughts, but this one was spot on. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
common sense is not so common, sadly. So this is
true. But yeah, maybe this will help people. Just look at the
Mhm.
stitches, try for natural
Yeah.
fibers, and just look at the overall build of it, try it on, move in it. If you start from the perspective of this is something that's closest to me at all
Mm-hmm.
times, it's on my body. I want to feel in a certain way. And this is where I feel a lot of people, and I'm convinced now that a lot of people have been entirely brainwashed because very few clothing companies talk about the feel of a garment. It's always about the looks. It's always about how
Mm,
it looks.
such a good
This is like the
point.
prevalent. Right. It's such a
Yes.
prevalent thing. And yes, I mean, listen, I'm someone that sells aesthetics since I was 15, right? So I don't want to diminish that part of it because it's really important. But unless you feel good in something, regardless of how amazing it is, the best you can spend in that garment will be a couple of hours. And that's why, like ball gowns and stuff like that, they're not made to be comfortable necessarily. They're made to be beautiful, but this cannot be applied to your everyday wear, to what you wear in your daily
Yeah, you
life.
can suck it in for an evening, but
Even purely biologically, if you look at it, that's why I keep on saying it's the closest thing because our biggest organ is our skin, right?
mhm.
And it's the first indicator if something is wrong with us, whatever, you're ill and you become
Yeah,
yellowish or
ashy.
you have a rash and all those things. And the fact that you prefer wrapping your biggest organ
Hmm.
into plastic is completely against our natural state of being.
Hmm.
It's that simple,
Yeah,
But it's because
yeah.
marketing is so powerful and it's so easy at
Hmm.
this point, it's so easy to manipulate people and, put them into, oh, looks, this is what's important.
Hmm.
I mean, just see two people, one that feels really good in their clothes and another one that looks amazing and super fashionable. I promise you, the one that feels really good is going to be the one you're drawn to because this
Hmm.
is how humans
There's just
function.
something else about the,
Yeah.
yeah, look versus feel. This is, I mean, yeah. And I think it goes even one step further. So I'd say like weekly challenge, if you have anything in your closet that no longer fits you because it might has been too tight now and your body has grown for whatever reason, this is fine.
Yeah.
Pass it on to someone else who will love it and wear it. Right?
Sure.
Like it, and I mean, I've been guilty of this too. Like I've done this in the past where like I just could suck it in. And
Yeah.
and I'm like, why? Why would I
Yeah.
bother? Maybe it's
Yeah.
me turning 40, but I'm like, I don't really fucking want to. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah. But you know what? It's not even versus. It's more like before. So feel is before the looks. And
Yeah.
somehow they work together in a perfect harmony. For me, this is always the number one thing, and that's why I choose to work with, as a primary fabric, I choose to work with silk because there is nothing that feels like silk. I
Mm.
mean, let's be honest, there is
Yeah.
nothing. Even cashmere doesn't feel the same way.
Mm-mm.
So, if you have, and that's actually, this is where I find something really sad, that a lot of people don't even know how that feels. A lot of young people have no idea how silk feels.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just sad, because it's becoming such a scarce material, most of the natural fibers, to be honest with you.
Mm.
And I just feel like sometimes, especially on social media, TikTok, where more
Mm-hmm.
younger people are, you feel like you just want to have like a swatch book and send it to them so they can feel it because it's
Yeah, like those baby books where you feel
exactly,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just,
You're onto something there.
yeah, we lost so much of this connection and part of ourselves, which is
Mm-hmm.
our natural relationship with the environment.
Mm-hmm.
This is my other biggest, I would say, probably pet peeve, where, somehow we always, when we talk about sustainability, it's always like nature is somehow separated from humans or the other way around. Somehow we are this like, weird creature that is in like a weird bubble somewhere, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not part of nature. And I find this such a weird narrative because,
Yeah.
when people talk about
Nothing is.
healing Mother Earth, no, we are killing ourselves because the planet is here and has been here for a very long time before us. It will be here after us. So we need
It will
to,
be able to regenerate itself
it
probably
will be able to regenerate
when
this.
once we're gone.
So we have to sustain ourselves in that environment. We are part of it, just like any other
Mm-hmm.
species. So I just
Yeah, but again, right? If we have like neoliberalism of me, don't
mhm.
we have a hard time fathoming that we are part of a society, let alone like an ecosystem.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Individualism, as a friend of mine is gonna say now, individualism is gonna kill us all, you
Mm,
know.
amen to that. Like, yeah, I mean, it's like, and sometimes this is where I get like a sour, moldy old bitch, where I'm like, us sociologists have been telling you this for years, but you ain't listening. But that will be a
True.
conversation for another time.
Yeah, true, true.
But I really like the fabric swatch book idea because this is so true, right? Like silk is so lovely on my skin. The only thing I'm really having a hard time with, I'm if there's something I can spill, I will spill it. And if you spill anything on silk, it's a nightmare. Like
But it depends though. It
yeah,
really depends. It depends on, listen, I mean, there is a good side of it and there is a bad side of it. So what I mean is like the really good side of this is that wearing such a beautiful and pricey fabrics is it makes you more aware, so it makes you way more careful into how you treat them. Not just the spill, but like, how you
yeah,
would the
washing
washing
and like
machine,
yeah.
how you would take care of them. And I promise you, I see this with customers of ours, which are already so well acknowledged to all of those things. They
Mm,
are very, they would message and say, what do I do? I spilled coffee. What do I do? And actually, a lot of the things around silk, a lot of the narrative around silk is completely invented and false in respect of selling more plastics. Because what I just told you earlier on, polyester was invented to substitute
mm-hmm.
silk because of the labor intensive process and the price and all of that stuff. It wasn't, and obviously, you know, polyester makers make a lot of money. It's a petroleum-based fiber, so it's all
Mm-hmm.
very much invented in favor of plastics, which is to say that silk is actually not such a fancy material to take care of. You have to know very basic things. We are just about to launch. Sorry, I don't want this to sound like an advertising, but I
You're
really
okay. That's okay. No
it's
worries.
so because it's such a mind-blowing thing to me. We are the only company that makes 100% silk knitted t-shirt. Jill Sander
Okay.
used to make them 10 years ago, from what people tell me. And I keep on trying to find someone who makes them outside of us, and no one does. No one does. I don't know whether it's the price, whether, and it kind of, people really, really like it, but you can wash it in the washing machine on 30 degrees. It's a very unpretentious garment.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to, like, I mean, obviously, I'm not telling you put a ketchup on it, but you know what I mean? Like, it's the strongest fiber that
Mm-hmm.
humans know. So the idea that it's a very, very tricky fiber to take care of is not coming from the fact or the features of the fabric itself. It's coming from the same
Okay,
narrative,
I see.
which
Yeah,
is going
okay.
to tell you it's
Mm-hmm.
cruel, it's, killing animals and this and that, as if 80% polyester production doesn't kill animals,
Yeah,
flora.
that's another, like, I think that's another discussion for a whole nother time. Like the
Yeah,
whole vegan
true.
aspect of
Very.
things, right? Like,
Don't get me started on it.
yeah, I'm like, as part of me really wants to like, uh, like bring this on, like vegan leather. It's just it's a
No.
polymer. Thank you very much. Unless you do something like the pineapple things or something. I don't know. But yeah, we're
Another
like, okay, we'll have you come back for this because I feel
Anytime.
there's a lot to say about this. Listen, I kind of we covered a lot of ground, and I think it's without giving like anyone like a detailed manual of like do this, do that, and don't do that, right? I think it's really lovely that you highlighted the no shame approach, because
Yeah.
shaming is not really igniting social change ever, um, or personal change and then social change, but it's really yeah, be curious. And again, that was also very interesting for me about the long fibers with silk and the short with cotton. Like it totally makes sense from if you look at it from a physics point of view. But I've never really, I don't know, thought about it like that because I'm
But
not
why
a
would
fabric
you?
person.
Why would you in the same context? Why would you? I feel like people in this space have completely lost touch with reality. If you're
Mm,
a lawyer, intellectual property lawyer, why would you have your time spent unless it's a topic or something that you're passionate about, like a hobby or just like
yeah,
an interest of yours? Why would you spend time reading about long and short fibers? And I work in
I
this
do read a lot of weird books
years.
that are nonfiction, but
True, but you know what I mean? Like, and this
yeah,
is
no, I
what
get
I
it.
really hate how the approach is. You should know this. No, you shouldn't. Just like you shouldn't know about intellectual property rights. No
Mm,
one is supposed to know that much about anything diving deep. Obviously, we're talking about, common things and something, but this is where I feel like the approach always should
hmm.
be polite and somehow kind. And I mean, I don't know. I think sometimes I also want to scream at people and just be like, come on, how you not see it? Obviously. But I don't think anyone is going to buy into this unless we give them something inspirational, something, it's one thing to tell you, listen, you will feel amazing. I promise you, just give it a try.
Hmm.
And it's another thing to tell you, come on, are you dumb? You don't know silk? What do you mean? Like it's a
Yeah.
very different
Oh
approach
God,
to
yes, yes,
conversation,
yes.
so I just can't get myself to ever shame people or be aggressive to anything. I don't think it's the right way.
Oh, 100%. And I think this is a very lovely notion to end our conversation. But I have one last question because I have you on and we had not have yet promised a second conversation. I I feel like I once had a fashion maker on before and I asked her too, and I'm also asked Aja, and I'm also curious about you because all you fashion stylish people, what to you is the difference between style and fashionable, like someone being stylish and someone being fashionable? What does true style mean to you?
Um, I would probably say that true style is basically your character visualized. Let's put it that way. your
Mm.
character visualized. Because you see, I'm a strong believer in, people constantly talk, especially in this industry or any creative industry. And as you are a graphic designer, you would agree with me. We always talk about talent and how talent is important and this and that. And it is important, but if you actually look into it, and when I say look into it, I mean think about it and ponder a little bit. Talent is doesn't mean much.
It's a small percentage.
It's very small percentage. It's very random. Also, unless you have character, which can be observed and nurtured, and you know, you don't really have anything because talent without the work, without the
Yeah.
effort, without the development means nothing.
Talent will not get
And
you
again,
through
it's
learning a trade.
exactly, and it's random. You might have it, you might not have it. There are many people who are, considered not so talented and have done amazing things, which
Hmm.
benefited a lot of people. Many examples, even in the music industry, people have been saying Madonna is talentless, yet she is the biggest icon
Oh
we've
yeah, yeah, yeah.
seen.
I mean,
For instance,
there are a lot of people. I think Taylor Swift is another example. Like, are there
yeah,
better vocalists?
yeah,
Sure,
yeah, of
but
course,
you cannot
yeah.
deny what she's doing right now. It's massive.
Exactly. So I feel like it's the same for style, it's your character
Mm.
and everything about you, but in the visuals. So
Oh, I
fashion,
like this. Yeah,
fashionable is about, what's going on at the moment. It's like this, trend and this kind of at the moment thing that's happening. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's part of the industry. It will always be part of the industry. It will always matter to a certain extent. Listen, we don't really do trends in Lora Gene, but I would lie to you if I say I don't do the trendy colors. I don't do the trendy shapes. Obviously, it's a timeless approach to it because it's again how you read the trends. It's not how you know,
yeah. I mean, you
make.
can feel inspired by, I don't know, the Pantone color of the year or
And
something,
also,
but
it's how it works. People want to feel with the time. So I don't think I'm not one of those people who's going to say ditch the trends entirely because it's not going to happen. It's how it functions. It's how our world functions. And it's not only in fashion. We have trends in food, we
mm,
have trends in psychology, we have trends in
yeah.
architecture, we have lots and lots of
Oh, absolutely. Hmm.
and most of the time, to be honest, I think half of them make sense. So, if it's trendier to have eco-conscious housing, there is nothing wrong with that because we need that. If
Yeah.
it's trendy to talk about sustainable fashion, there is nothing wrong with that because it's really important that we now adopt this kind of trends. So I'm not against it, but I feel like what is really important is to develop your own style again based on your character because it what makes you you.
Mm.
This is one of those messages that we are really trying to come across to get across to everyone that's like we can reach the eyes of is basically the main thing in the fashion industry is that someone is trying to sell you a new you that is going to, tick some box. If I buy this dress, I'm gonna
Oh
look
God.
better
We
or
all had that one piece
exactly,
of our wardrobe from like,
exactly,
I'm gonna
yeah,
wear this when, or like
yeah, yeah.
if I'm wearing this handbag, like I am this kind of person.
But that's the whole idea to sell you
Hmm.
something which that gives you an additional layer of something that might not necessarily be you. It's about the society and how you're perceiving it.
Yeah.
What I'm really trying to get across is that I kind of try and nudge women to remember that this is all invented and they are amazing as they are. Clothes
Hmm.
need to highlight this, to kind
Hmm.
of make this even more visible and make them feel better with themselves rather than with some new invented new you or anything like that.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying which is better or worse, but I feel at 21st century where we are dealing with all of this, climate change and all these challenges in our world, I feel it's really important that we start recognizing how we feel about ourselves before how we feel outside in the world. And that's why
Before we worry about how we look. So we're back
exactly,
to look,
yeah,
feel versus look.
yeah. So I
Mm.
really feel like style for me has always been your character in visual, who you are
Mm.
visualized.
I love this. Okay, and I'm gonna go through my wardrobe and like see like okay, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. I love this very much. This is a very good description. I
it's
think
your
this rings
expression,
true.
isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And I mean you can say what you want, right? It's you can say it's superficial and whatnot, but we all judge a book by its covers.
of course.
I mean, we're all human. We all do it.
That's
It
why.
serves
That's
us.
why.
It's reduces the complexity of our like every day. Like we do it. We can try to go against our biases. We should, but we all like judge the book by its covers. So
We do, and it's important. And I feel it's you can't just um, a lot of people are like, oh, the fashion is bullshit. It's not. It's a huge industry, right? Like it's one of the biggest industries in the world. It matters a lot to many people. And
mm,
yes, a lot of it might sound like, we are like these snowflakes, which are just talking about colors and stuff. But the truth is, outside of this very tiny fashion conversation, which is about, fashion shows and trends and stuff, there is so much to clothing. It's such a human thing. And that's why I always try to put it in the context of humans, your character,
mm-hmm,
visualize your
mm-hmm,
how you feel, because it's about humans, clothing is
mm-hmm.
about humans, even luxury is about humans, everything is about human luxury as a segment, as a part of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
industry.
yeah.
So I just feel like one of the major things, and I would probably like to leave you with that, is to ask everyone who's going to listen to this, or somehow whoever we are able to reach me and you with this conversation, to try and bring back their idea of clothing and fashion and everything that is connected to garments to a more human level and connect to that.
Mm.
The moment you do that, everything becomes so simple. You go and buy a garment and you think, oh, but wait a second, this is made from a human, which I might not see, but it's made from a human. And that human pretty much wants the same thing as me because, we all want some security. We all want some sort of
Basic needs.
basic needs. And then the moment you are like, is this person, abused making this? Let me check, let me see. The moment you make that human connection, everything becomes so simple, and
Mm-hmm.
you can inspire yourself to be more careful how you buy for yourself and how that affects others.
I could not have said it better.
I tried my best.
Oh,
Sometimes it comes.
well done. Well done. Okay. So, Laura, if anyone is inspired now to have a look at what you're doing, where can people find you? Tell
We are pretty much on all social media, whether we like it or not.
us.
We have a website. We are very hardly working to hopefully open our first store this year. We'll see. Cross
Brick and
fingers.
mortar?
Yeah,
Ooh,
hopefully. We have some
London, I suppose.
stores. Yes, yeah. To start with, hopefully. We have some stores. We actually have a couple of locations, but just you can go on the website, loragene.com, very easy. And just look, we have all the information is there. And we are very conversational brand. So if you have any questions, just feel free to message, email. That's like our best, I would say my biggest, the one thing I'm very proud of is that we have such an open and friendly
Mm.
conversation with our audience and customers. I really think that brands should become more human in all sorts of ways.
Generally good branding advice to leave us
Yeah,
off. Laura, thank you so much for being on a scenic route with me.
me too. Thank you very much. You can have me as much anytime you want, as much as you want. It was a lovely, lovely conversation.